New York Times is effectively the publishing arm of the CIA, which means that Justin Baldoni just tried to sue the CIA. Okay? Big mistake. Nobody wins against the New York Times, okay? They have told egregious lies for years against celebrities, against politicians that have, of course, led to real world consequences, but they always get away with it. Like, we were just looking, me and the producers, like, who wins against them? Sarah Palin just lost against them. Skylar, you were just talking about the story where even an Ohio Supreme Court justice sued them for an egregious lie, and he actually won. So you have think about this, a Supreme Court judge has even sued the New York Times for their lies. And even though he won, he wasn't awarded anything for damages. So I don't know what kind of a win that is. They were just like, okay, fine, we're lying, we're getting caught lying again. But they get away with it because the goal is to shape public opinion. And by then the damage is done. And the CIA knows that they can always protect them in court. Now, this becomes especially relevant when you remember the old story that we covered, okay? The headline that Blake Lively had engaged the CIA alum, okay, the crisis PR firm, in her battle against Justin Baldoni. And we went, I said, that's very interesting that she did that. That Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are moving to hire a PR crisis manager. His name was Nick Shapiro. He was formerly of the CIA. He worked for the CIA's deputy. He was the CIA's deputy chief of staff, and he worked beneath their director, John Brennan, who's implausibly corrupt. Why did they engage this firm? Because, guys, I hate to tell you this, America's ghetto and corrupt. Like, that's reality. It's ghetto and corrupt. Like, that is the reality. And the New York Times is going to be the New York Times, and they know that they're going to be protected. And so the best way to think about this case is that the Justin Baldoni hit piece originated from the CIA protected New York Times. So on June 10th, I wasn't shocked when Judge Lehman did what always happens in these matters pertaining to the New York Times /CIA lawsuits. He entirely dismissed the lawsuit against the New York Times, and then he necessarily had to dismiss any of the repeated claims that were in Blake Lively's filings. Because you can't say, okay, the New York Times is not guilty, but Blake and Ryan are. You have to gut it from their lawsuit as well. And that's exactly what he did. On June 10th, he ruled that Justin Baldoni cannot sue Blake Lively after dismissing the New York Times one, that he cannot sue Blake Lively for defamation over the claims that she made in her legal filing because the allegations made are exempt from libel. He also ruled that that Baldoni could not sue her for extortion under California law. Now, the extortion piece would have also dragged the New York Times into it, because don't forget, regarding the extortion, they would have forced the New York Times to go into discovery, because the claim was that Blake Lively wanted the rights to the movie and she was extorting them, saying that you give me what I want or I will go public with claims of sexual harassment, allegedly. And so in order for them to prove that, they would have subpoenaed messages with her. And who was she going to go public with? The New York Times. So everything the judge just did, in my view, was to protect the CIA. That is why everyone was so surprised. I was like, no, this is how it works. If you pay attention, it is, you cannot sue the CIA. You cannot win against the government. And there are so many public cases that have happened. So do not ever operate under the delusion that there is not a hand that works above judges. It simply does. And that hand is the federal government, the deep state. Now, after gutting those portions of the lawsuit, which are to be expected, the judge then said, okay, now what's left here are your claims, which have nothing to do with the New York Times. Okay. And he said, and which is the, essentially the tortious interference, the contractual stuff. And he is allowing them to now revise the lawsuit and represent it gutted, because he is saying it's okay for you to pursue these different claims pertaining to whether or not Lively breached or interfered with her contract. And that is what they're doing right now. They're going to have to resubmit their lawsuit with anything pertaining to the New York Times or that could potentially implicate the New York Times removed from it. Like I said, America is ghetto and corrupt, and that is just a reality that we all should understand by now.